When it comes to the ever-changing world of synthesizers, the latest and greatest instruments generate sounds that are also ever-changing. In fact, changing a sound over time is what our ear usually finds most interesting. So-called wavetable synthesis improves on the concept of static oscillating waveforms to add movement to sound. Where traditional subtractive synthesizers might achieve basic movement by modulating the oscillator's pitch or volume, wavetable-style synthesis reshapes the oscillator waveform itself over time. The results you can get from this approach are responsible for some of the more modern, interesting, and downright epic sounds in music today. The Europa Shapeshifting Synthesizer takes the concept of wavetable synthesis and applies Propellerhead's signature style of getting great sounds quickly through approachable controls. Take a look at this bass line played using the patch Destructor Drone. If we disable the evolving elements of Europa, we'd have a fairly beige sound. So what takes this and makes it sound like this? Part of the answer lies in each of Europa's sections, but the real heart of Europa's sound generation and shapeshifting namesake comes from its three engines. Each engine generates an oscillating waveform, ranging from basic analog traditional waveforms to complex and even dynamic waveforms that respond to your own performance. The shape knob is the bread and butter of Europa's sound evolution power. You see, in wavetable synthesis, an oscillator is never just one waveform shape. It's a series of waveforms which you can move between. Perhaps this is best viewed using the most basic waveforms in Europa. The basic analog wavetable has 4 waveforms, covering the classic subtractive synthesis waveforms of sine, triangle, square, and sawtooth waves. But using the shape knob, we can sweep between these waveforms and morph from one to the next. While the waveform in our song's bass sound is far more complex looking, the same principles apply. Its wavetable oscillator contains a series of waveforms, and we can sweep through them using the shape knob, while enjoying the benefits of all those in-between states as well. If we move this one knob while the beige version of our bass plays, we instantly start getting a more interesting sound. So if moving the shape knob becomes the name of the game in wavetable synthesis, how best can we do that? For one thing, we could just automate it. Simply moving the shape knob while recording lets us go back and edit, duplicate, and generally tweak out on the exact evolution of our waveform. But another powerful way to adjust our shape knob with tools inside of Europa is using one of the envelopes. The envelope section at the bottom of Europa is a blank canvas of modulation possibility. Let's set our shape assignment to envelope 1, max out the amount, set our initial shape to the start of the range, and make sure we select envelope 1 for editing. If we selected a very basic envelope preset to start off, you can see that over the course of our envelope's duration, our waveform shape moves through the entire range of the wavetable. We can modify any preset we like by moving points, double-clicking to add our own points, adjusting the curve between 2 points, and for envelopes which have parallel points, we can click the Edit Y Position button to adjust their heights together. Also, in this Edit Y Position mode, we can hold down the Command key on a Mac or Control on Windows and draw our own custom envelope shapes. There are several included patches with Europa that make use of changing the wavetable shape using any of these methods. The sounds you can get range from epic pads to aggressive, biting basses and many characters in between. But moving through wavetable shapes is only one way that Europa's engines create evolving impressive sounds. The key to understanding the power of Europa is to realize that its waveforms and wavetables exist as algorithms, not as audio. By working algorithmically with oscillators, we can perform a number of modifications to sculpt the waveform in ways that simply aren't possible with traditional analog oscillators. Let's check out another song, and I'll show you what I mean. This is made from a couple Europa pads being processed with synchronous. Radical piano sampled into grain. And a loop courtesy of Reason 10's drum loop supply. But let's focus our attention on this Europa lead. The first thing that might catch your attention is the near hypnotic dance of our wave. What's making that happen? Well, I'm glad you asked. To answer that, let's first turn off the extra flare in this patch. With all that cool Europa shape-shifting turned off, we've got a pretty standard triangle wave with some effects on it. The wavetable used in this patch is saw triangle, which simply goes from a sawtooth wave to a triangle wave to a reverse sawtooth. Moving the shape knob back and forth makes for a cool sound. And while we could use an envelope like we did before, for simple back and forth motion like this, we can also use an LFO. So this time, let's set our assignment knob to LFO1, which is set up as a slow-moving sine wave. Dial in the amount just a little, and our triangle wave sways in the breeze. Turn it up higher, and our wave now morphs back and forth through all three shapes. Modulation of the shape isn't the only type of shape-shifting we can achieve. Each Europa engine has two modifiers which can alter the waveform in a variety of ways. And remember, because our waveform exists algorithmically, these modifications aren't processing the audio. They're recalculating the very waveform we're creating in our engine. Let's start with modifier 2 and temporarily turn down our shape modulation to see a steady wave. Modifier 2 is set to fold, which increases the amplitude of our wave. But when it gets to the ceiling, it folds the wave in upon itself. As I go up, each fold makes a more complex and distorted sounding wave. Let's now turn off modifier 2 and activate modifier 1. Phase distort bends our waveform in either direction and introduces some phase shifting bite in the process. Just like we did for the shape, we can use an LFO to modulate our modifier's amount over time. Let's use LFO 2 and dial it into taste. Remember, we've temporarily disabled LFO1 from modulating the shape, so if we dial that back in, check out how our wave now bends and morphs from both LFOs working together. And of course, let's not forget the wave folding we did with modifier 2. Our simple triangle wave has come a long way, right? We've got two more sections to our engine, but to explore those, let's check out another song. I'm particularly interested in this sound. And actually, this patch is so easy to make. Let's delete Europa and make it from scratch together. I'll double-click Europa in the browser and right-click to reset the device. Now, we've got a simple sine wave. No filter, no cool envelopes, no nothing. For the wavetable, I'll select a special style of wavetable in Europa. Car plus strong is a dynamic wavetable, which instead of generating a static oscillator, generates a physical model of a string being plucked. At one end of the shape range, it's all of the string's overtones with no pluck attack. At the other end, it's all pluck and nothing else. As we dial back through, you'll see the wave dynamically forming the string pluck and resonance waves. Let's up the amp release time to give our string some ring out. Before we discuss the spectral filter, let's go first to the harmonics processor. The harmonics processor does what its name would suggest. It processes the harmonics. But okay, maybe that's not too helpful of a description. Consider it this way. A sine wave is a pure single frequency, but every other waveform produces overtones and partial frequencies which create rich harmonic sounds. Europa's harmonics processor is able to target and alter those partial frequencies. If we turn on the harmonics and select odd-even, we can, for example, notch out everything but the even harmonics, giving us a hollow square wave type of sound. If we instead select the stretch process, all of the partial frequency harmonics which make up our wave are pushed and stretched around to be imperfect. The more imperfect the harmonic series is, the more it emulates metallic instruments. Somewhere in between, we get a physical model of a string pluck with cool metallic harmonic overtones. Now, let's check out that spectral filter. The spectral filter can sometimes look and behave just like any filter you're used to using. But because we're still treating our waveform as an algorithm and not an audio signal, Europa can go far beyond the limits of traditional filters. For example, by operating on the spectral content itself, we can apply a low-pass filter with a variable cutoff slope that goes far steeper than any traditional filter could do. We can also select filter curves unlike anything you've seen. If we're feeling experimental, we can actually create our own spectral filter curves using envelope 4. Watch as I click on envelope 4 down below and load a preset. Just like we did before, if we click Edit Y Position and hold down on Command or Control, we can draw our own filter curves and experiment in completely new ways with filters. I'll give this sound some more depth with Europa's onboard effects. Let's turn on the reverb, the delay, and the distortion. By clicking and dragging my effects, I can change their order in the chain. For example, I can apply the distortion after the reverb for a crunchier reverb sound. To give our sound thickness and stereo width, we can turn on Europa's unison module. Even in just this basic example, you can see the creative sound design possibility with Europa's engine. And here's the craziest part. We've been working today with a single engine. Europa has 3 engines. Each one is capable of this deep sound design, and when you get them working together, you have a limitless palette of powerful sounds to make. There's obviously much more to Europa that we'll surely be visiting in later videos, like sounds you can make with multiple engines, or the way you can draw custom wavetables using envelopes 3 and 4, and then morph between your own waves. And of course, there's the modulation matrix, which sets us up to control Europa through performance input, or Europa to control itself, or even for external devices to control Europa. Start exploring the many amazing patches included with Europa. It'll give you a lot of inspiration for what's possible. And at Propellerhead, we can't wait to hear what's possible for you.